Дамы и господа, добрый день.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. We're starting our session on the energy of comfort and how to ensure energy security of the city. Sorry for just small delay. We'll wait for one speaker who will join us later. And we'll start. So far, the topic of our discussion of today is quite relevant, and it's clear to everyone. Urbanization is developing in all the countries. Development of cities and mega cities results in increased consumption and energy security, not interrupted energy. All this is one of the most crucial factors for sustainable development of cities. Today, we'll study the best practices for energy security and efficiency in the biggest city of Russia, Europe, America, and we'll also discuss what else we can do to improve energy development and make it more dynamic. The speakers of our session will be Andreas Trisko, Head Department for Urban Development and Planning, Vienna, Sean Rosenmoss, Manager of Carbon Fund, responsible for development and community, Evgeny Gasho, Chairman of the Commission on Ecology, Energy and Sustainable Development of the Public Chamber of Moscow, and Peter Biryukov, Deputy Mayor of Moscow, responsible for housing and communal services and improvement, will join us, as well as Valery Seleznyov, First Deputy Chair of the Commission of the State Duma on Energy. I suggest Andreas Trisko starting the session. So Vienna is one of the eco-friendly and clean city and one of the leaders of energy efficiency in Europe. How do you manage to achieve it? And where do you see the most important measures we all need to implement for that? Good morning.
Michael, for these really friendly words. So I think in Vienna, like everybody else, we're struggling to do things right and to get our things done. I brought for you some examples. What is our way into bringing electricity to the city, managing new developments and so forth. So we think the future of energy providing energy for cities and for districts it lies in a local and regional focus. So you have to act locally, but to think globally. So this is what we think we should do, and let's see if it passes. So I come from the city planning department, and we're doing like all the overall city strategies. And Vienna has, since 2014, a smart city framework strategy, which also is our sustainability strategy. And there is an update to it that was passed by the City Council last week. And now we also have included the 17 SDGs from the UNESCO, the Sustainable Development Goals. And this sets like the frame for all we do in Vienna. And the key goal of our smart city is, I bring this to get it clear, because smart city often is very technical, very data-based only. We say our belief, our goal is to provide the highest possible resource preparation while offering the optimum quality of life for all citizens. And we think this can be done with comprehensive innovation, which means it's social innovations and it's technical and digital innovations also. So this is the big picture. Then there is an energy framework strategy that guides us, and the main issue is decarbonization, as it has to be right now with all this climate change and heating of the planet. So we try to get there, and it's waste heat and renewables like everywhere else. And we are guided also, it has to be economically viable. It has to be efficient, and it has to be, the supply has to be secure, and the social impact, it has to be okay for the people and usable. And we're doing studies on that. I will show you later a showcase. And the way to decarbonization, in our opinion, is in photovoltaic and in wind energy. And this is really regional. The city of Vienna is investing not only in its borders, but around its borders in the connecting federal states of Austria. And they put up photovoltaic plants, they put up wind parks, and they co-work with everyone there. And this is like a refurbishment program since right now almost 20 years. So this is a long way to go, and we're still not at the end, but we try to push. So what we also think that participation in all of this is a change maker. It's about social impacts. And I brought you one example, which is very successful. It's called the Viennese Citizen Solar Power Plants. The city of Vienna has its own energy production, its own energy works, and they make big solar power plants on big roofs in the city or on areas in the countryside. And you, as a citizen, you can be a shareholder of this power plant, and you can buy a slide or half a slide. You buy it, you get a guaranteed benefit in interests, and then after 10 years they rebuy it from you. And this is really, really popular. We have like 25 of these plants right now, and every time there goes one online and it starts, it is sold out literally in hours. It's really, really popular because it's a green investment, it's a safe investment, and you're investing and doing something for your own city or for yourself. So this is really an example I like to present a lot because it's really good way of thinking the future. So there is also some really missions for new developments we think are important. So it's about connecting buildings with heat pumps, about about putting on like local networks that go then in the bigger network, using the market and try to do storing things and get when it's the ups and downs, you know. But this you have to program a lot, and you have to start right early in development. So as I mentioned already, it's photovoltaic and wind power. But what is important that you have to plan the energy system not only of a building but also of a district really at a really early phase. So what we are doing right now is we come together, all experts, when it comes to plan something. It's the mobility experts, the green land experts, the architects, but also the people from energy supply and the big investors that are there, because you have to model a program. For instance, if you have a server farm, they have need a lot of electricity, but they produce a lot of heat. So you can get this heat into your heating system. Or also with big supermarkets where they are freezing the refrigeration of goods. You use this heat to make electricity. So you have to connect it and to start right from the start. Yeah, this is what it says. And you can go not only in the normal network of electricity, also what I was saying, the low temperature network. So you have to build everything up. And now we use the soil beneath the buildings and also the concrete and the heavy weight of the building for storing energy and collecting. The standards of the buildings by law are very high in Austria, but we try to build plus energy buildings and districts. So I show you some examples in just a few slides. And as I said, energy planning must be a part of city planning in an early stage. This is one of our showcases. It's called Aspern-D12, where we did this right from scratch already like 15 years ago. So we had some failures also. There was possibility for thermal water, but we failed to. It wasn't so productive, so we had to redo plans. And this is another statement, you cannot find the right answer at once. So you have to try different things. We rethought the thing there, and now it's more solar plants, photovoltaic, and so on. And district heating. Vienna has a long history in district heating. We're doing it like since the late 60s, early 70s, which is not so common, at least in German-speaking countries. And so this is what we did there on a stronger base. And one thing I want to mention also is that we now have the ability to regulate the energy supply for districts. So we can say, we can make a regulation like a zoning code that says, okay, in this district there is a strong net for district heating, so therefore you have to use this only, and you cannot use, for instance, natural gas for heating. So this is also, it's one thing is to go more to renewables, but the other thing is also that you have to maintain two infrastructures, which is not very efficient. So just to manage it better and to focus more on these things, we now have the ability to regulate that. And in Aspern Smart City, we don't only build, we also do research, and the ASCR, Aspern Smart City Research, is a project, a research project, and it consists, Siemens is in there, the Viennese Works is in there, the Austrian Institute of Technology is in there, and also various partners from the city itself, our department also, because we're interested in the smart user, how do people react, how do they use, and it's about smart buildings, smart grid, smart user, and smart ICT, and we monitor this on a real basis. We could attract a lot of funding from the European Union, so this is good funded, and it's really important research. And there is 3 buildings there that are documented, and also the users are documented. One is a school and kindergarten campus. Another one is a student's asylum, and another one is an apartment house. It's a social housing project. And I show you the last 2 ones in more detail. So this is the student hotel. It's called, the name it has, it doesn't matter a lot, but it's a passive house plus standard, so it's almost no need for heating energy. So the building can produce all the energy it needs itself. And you see this is the capacity of the photovoltaic and also of the battery storage. And it has all the thermal insulation and airtight, everything you have to have. But the additional thing is this is monitored. The students have devices that they can handle and improve their using of the building, and we also check out who uses devices and who just believes or trusts the technology itself, and what is better, what is more efficient. And another one is a really great subsidized housing project. It's like 230 flats. It's also a low energy building. There's different heat pump systems, solar heat, everything you have it there. Soil storage, battery storage, smart home automatization. This is again, like you can just with your iPhone, say, okay, open the window, or I want it like that. And interesting thing is, what is really, I think, special is that the construction costs also were top, and there was a limit to see how cheap you can go building this, because it's always, with a lot of money you can do a lot of things. So the challenge was also with not so much money to do a really high standard building, and this you can see the square meter construction costs could be like 1,450 euros per square meter, which is really low for Austrian standards. And the rent by now are like 7 euros per square meter, so it's really cheap to rent out. But each apartment has free space and so. And this is monitored, and we're now in the next round. And from these experiences we have there, we want to scale them up. This is the thing behind it. So this is what we're doing. We're also doing something not only when we newly built, but also in the build-up city, where we have also projects. But this would have been too long, so this is it from me. Spasiba.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. It's really impressive what you do in Vienna. I have some questions to you, but I would suggest that we at first give a chance to speak to all the speakers, and then we'll have a round of common questions. Я бы хотел передать слово Петру Павловичу.
Okay, now I would like to give the floor to Petr Pavlovich Birukov. I know that energy safety is one of the factors for the sustainable development in a megacity. What are the results shown by Moscow in energy safety and energy efficiency, and how did you reach them? Good afternoon, dear colleagues. The question of energy safety for the Moscow government is are the top priorities for Moscow government. We have a couple of factors. So we have winter and the central heating period of 7 months. So before we finish one period, we start to get prepared for the next one. So we are being developed in a dynamic way. And in recent 9 years, we were growing by 9 million square meters in terms of our real estate. We need to provide for their maintenance. And in 2012, we got new territories twice as big as the old maintenance, with 25 boiler houses, with a lot of outdated electric supply infrastructure. And we had to prepare it all to ensure secure maintenance from 2013. And we had to take into account our prior experience. And I would like you to know that for 9 central heating periods, we had no blackouts of electricity, with no major accidents in water supply. Yes, there were some individual cases, but actually we learned how to maintain it in an efficient way. So we have the backup system, which covers 98% of the city. So if one source of generations becomes faulty, in 1.5 hours we can switch into a backup source of energy. The same with the water supply, and that's how we managed to be energy efficient. So in the recent 9 years, we could optimize our management system, our control system in power industry. We gathered all assets of our heating grids. So it's run by Gazprom Energo Holding, and we have a system of backup electric power generating equipment. During the last year, so we provided the backup capacity for 25 power plants, covering our reliability system. In 2009, we were at a critical limit of supplying gas into the city of Moscow. We reached nearly 30 billion cubic meters of gas, what our system could process and pump. And we had to develop new gas pipelines, and there were plans for 45 billion cubic meters, so which would require us to build new gas pipelines. And we built 6 steam gas power plants. The 7th is about to be finished shortly. And as a result, we could reduce our gas consumption, given that the areas, the premises of our real estate grew by 50%. We are growing our outdoor lighting system. In those years, we grew the number of lighting installations, including for night lighting, without growing the amount of energy consumption, because we use the lighting fixture of the new generation. In those years, the city increased the architectural lighting by 5 times without increasing the number of energy consumption. It was achieved by using modern lighting and control technologies. Importantly, it was also the result of having the grid update system in our city. 55,000 kilometers of underground utilities are provided in the city, and we have about 14,000 kilometers of overhead electric lights, 7,000 of gas pipelines, and the same quantity of sewage, and 12,000 kilometers of water pipeline. Water treatment systems for 11,000 kilometers, and we update 2 to 4% of those systems annually, and the wear in tier in an average Russian city is 4%, and that's the result of our accident-free and failure-free operations. As for our actions in recent years, that headcount of our personnel, due to the use of new technologies in control in central heating, was reduced by 45%, in water piping by 30%. Although we raised salaries for our operating personnel, we have a very experienced and highly competent specialists, which allow us as the government to provide services of a higher quality compared to what was 9 years ago. We have new technologies in water treatment. The quality of water is much different, and the rainwater sewage are discharged at the level of the fishing stations, because we have ultraviolet water treatment systems at our water treatment stations, and we used to increasing their capacities. So Kuryanovo water treatment station was completely retrofitted. The same with Lubeltsy waste treatment facilities, and there are plans to upgrade 2 other stations. We have biostations on biogas combustions, and every power plant generates about 10 megawatts of energy. As for developing renewable sources of electric energy, some works are underway, and we are complying the requirements of the Russian government to reduce consumption of electricity, and we had targets set to be achieved by 2022, and the targets have been reached. And annually, we do the overhauling of 2,000 buildings in residential sector annually to reduce energy consumption, and having 55,000 gigacalories, which is the peak capacity. In the coldest periods, we consume only 23,000 gigacalories. Given that our real estate is growing by 9 million square meters. So back in 2005, so we had to switch off the grid some industrial enterprises and markets. But today our capacity is that our backup capacity is 3.5 megawatts, and our daily peak capacity was 18,000 megawatts, and also we have reserve capacities with water, and we can build another Moscow or city the size of Moscow, and we supply our water to Moscow's region in line with the joint agreement. So, and we started to supply 2.5 times more water into the Moscow region. I mentioned some numbers about gas, and for Moscow and all its residents, it's important to collect rainwater, and we added a lot of infrastructure for wastewater collection. 5 years ago, we had so at the moment we have 62 places for wastewater collection, and this is an evidence that today the mayor of the city and the government of the Moscow are focused on developing the entire engineering system. And we have My Street program, which is a good indication. So we are repairing our streets. So we have repaired 350 streets by now. And before we do the vertical layout, before we lay the asphalt, we begin with the engineering systems, with utilities, power supply, water supply, being focused on having no need to repair in the next 50 years. We are based on the new solutions in engineering and reliability in gas, electric and water supply. And we have very competent specialists behind those solutions, and we interact with our scientific and academic institutions which provide help in terms of methodology, and Moscow enterprises, engineering enterprises, shared with us their proposals on how to optimize power consumption and water supply, and our aim is to reach the level of generation so that if there would be failure at the level of one consumer, the heat power plant would get an alarm. If the temperature outdoors would go down, the system would inform that the consumers will need to increase or reduce the temperature of the heating fluid. So we have set our goals, and goals are being resolved not as goals related to power and water consumption, but at the level of the entire city economy. Many thanks. So you covered the topic so comprehensively. So I would like to give the chance to other speakers, and then we would get back to a discussion. Now, I would like to address Sean Rosemos. Dear Sean.
American cities in terms of how it is green and clean. What allows you to achieve such results, and what are your plans for the future to increase this?
Hello. Okay. So the city of San Francisco, we're a small city. We cover 49 square miles. We have nowhere to go but up at the moment because we're surrounded on 3 sides by water. Just the context for everything that we're doing in San Francisco. So our climate action goals are 0, 80, 100 routes, and zero waste, 0 toxics, 0 incineration, 80% of all trips taken in sustainable modes of transit, 100% renewable energy, which includes getting off of all fossil fuels, energy efficiency, It's more than just putting solar panels on our rooftops. And then, so these 0, 80, 100 are really about doing less bad. They're really about shrinking our carbon and our greenhouse gas emissions. Our roots goal is about doing more good. How do we absorb greenhouse gas emissions? But more importantly, how do we get back to our roots of taking care of each other, taking care of community? Because we know if we want to be resilient, we have to build community, right? So we are doing a lot of energy stuff around resiliency, but also we want to make sure that our communities, people know each other. So 100% renewable energy. This is basically, in a nutshell, we are very reliant in San Francisco on natural gas to heat our buildings. And essentially, we want to electrify everything, our buildings, our cars, and make sure that all of that electricity is coming from renewable energy. At the moment, the city of San Francisco, about 56% of our electricity is coming from renewable energy, whether it's solar, wind, hydrothermal, hydropower. And fortunately for us in San Francisco, you know, one of the first things when we're talking about renewable energy is we want to reduce our energy use. So we are very focused on energy efficiency. And fortunately in San Francisco, we get funding from the state of California. 30 years ago, the state introduced something called the public goods charge. So when you pay your utility bill in the state of California, a very small percentage of that funding goes back to the state of California, who does all kinds of research on energy efficiency and then funds a lot of energy efficiency implementation. So this has been very important in San Francisco because we work with a lot of small businesses to implement energy efficiency programming. And these are businesses who would not be able to otherwise afford this, even though ultimately they're going to save a lot of money. So consequently, you can see in the state of California, our population has doubled in the last 30 years, and our energy use has remained very flat. And so this is the only state in the U.S. that this has happened. So I bring this up because very often when I speak, people go, well, how do you fund this? This is how we fund this. When I pay my electricity bill, I don't even notice the small fraction that goes into energy efficiency research for the state, but we notice it as a state. So this is very exciting to me as an energy geek. So in San Francisco, as far as resiliency goes, you know, we have earthquakes in San Francisco. In Hurricane Sandy, which was in New York, the city was off the grid for days. We are more and more in San Francisco as a result of the climate changing and the climate crisis. We have a lot of heat issues. We had a big heat episode in September, and many people died. And so this is new for us, and this is happening more and more every year that we're going to be looking at heat vulnerability. So we have some motive, right, to really look at how resilient our energy system is, and to also look at this sort of overlap of we still want to do mitigation, right? We still want to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, and we're going to continue working on that. But we also want to see, okay, well then, so what kind of mitigation projects can we implement that are also going to help us adapt to climate change? Because that's happening, and we see it in San Francisco. And then, of course, the third thing is hazard mitigation. And when I talk about hazard mitigation, it's about sort of the immediate stressors of an earthquake or a power outage as a result of a heat wave. So we're looking at, given our limited funding as a city, and I'm assuming most cities here would be in the same situation. You know, we don't have unlimited funding. So what kind of projects are we going to implement that are going to really touch on all three of those areas? Local generation is a big one for us. So this is in the middle of San Francisco. This is a 5 megawatt photovoltaic system. You know, when people come to visit me, they always want to go to some tourist thing, and I make them go here. And they're like, wow, we really wanted to go to Fisherman's Wharf for the Golden Gate Bridge. But so this is a good educational piece also, because one of the things that we find is that people don't really understand electricity, and they don't really understand energy. And if they don't, it's very hard for them to get why we need to do certain things. So because this is in the middle of the city and very public, it's also a great educational tool for us. So one of the things that we're working on is the idea of solar plus storage. And again, in California, We're very lucky because we get a lot of support from the state, but there are a lot of financial, technical, and regulatory barriers to just saying we're going to have photovoltaics plus battery storage and be able to decouple from the grid, right? You can't just do that. So we have had to do a lot of research on how can we make this happen. And what we are looking at is how are we going to put solar plus storage on all of our crucial facilities. We worked with ARUP. We developed a tool where any building in San Francisco, any property owner, you can plug in all of the information about your building and sort of sort your load out by what's our regular load during any given day, what's our load, what are the things that we absolutely have to operate in the event that the grid goes down, and really look at how much photovoltaic are we going to need? How much battery storage are we going to need? So you can plug all of that information in and figure out what your building is going to need. And then you can start doing other calculations about how you're going to finance it, how you're going to fund it. So we've identified in every major neighborhood in San Francisco 13 buildings and are looking at, okay, what is the absolute minimum amount of electricity that we would need in the event of an emergency, and how are we going to get that? So again, it helps us solve many of our goals, because if we've got solar panels on our roofs, we're obviously not just going to use those in the event of an emergency. They're going to be generating power all the time, right? Battery storage going to be storing all the time, so that we can also look at time of use data, right? Because in San Francisco, if you use electricity at certain periods of the day, it's more expensive than other periods, right? So what if we charge our batteries and then use those during these very expensive peak times? So again, this serves a double function around resiliency in the event of a shock like an earthquake, and also helps us mitigate our carbon emissions in the immediate future. So that is sort of the baseline around resiliency in San Francisco. We're doing a lot of the same work, in Vienna and Austria and Moscow around, policies that building owners have to benchmark their energy use and make that information public, which has been a great, we don't require that they then do energy efficiency work, but it's actually been a great motivator, the fact that they have to make that information public. Right? Because if you own a huge building in the financial district of San Francisco and you're leasing that building, people are very interested in what their energy use is going to be, and they're very interested in how green that building is. So we're doing a lot of that kind of work as well. But the solar plus storage is a big one for us, and local generation is a big one for us around how we're going to be more resilient.
I can't resist from asking you a direct question after the speech. So the cost of alternatives definitely dropped down during the recent years, but it still is very high, and compared to the conventional generation is much, much higher. So how do you solve this dilemma between the necessity to increase the supply and the cost of it, the efficiency of adding more megawatts needed for the growth with their cost?
Well, so like I said, our energy use has not actually grown because we just keep slapping on energy efficiency measures. In the U.S., pretty much solar is about the same price as other fuel. It's hard to convince people to go solar if they're already using something. And so we're working with another city department. So we have a very interesting energy mix in San Francisco. We have 2 utility providers. And so on city buildings, we're just going to fork over the money, because we're really trying to frame it not just this is about your energy and your money. This is about a bigger issue. And that has motivated the city, at least, to be able to do a lot more with solar. It's not actually the photovoltaics in San Francisco that we have a hard time selling. It's more the battery storage. That's the part that we're going to have a hard time funding.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
And I would like to refer to Evgeny Gasho. Evgeny, the city is changing, energy is changing. How can we balance these processes? What do you think? Well, the slogan of Open Forum is "The city changes for you." It's interesting for us how the city is changing for us, and Pyotr Biryukov has shared it with us brilliantly. So, how should we change the housing, the energy? So we have new business centers and business complexes, and they have increased in 10 years and 4-5 times. And if we compare the year 2006-7 and the recent years, the gap is colossal. So so 3 to 1, 100 billion calories, and we have peaks for electro complexes. So for the first time, we have peaks of energy consumption in June. So the city is changing for us. People want comfort, and they pay for this comfort, and they want to feel comfortable in the streets and also at home. For the novel housing, we can start doing it in you with the old housing, the traditional, it is much slowly, but we are trying to reduce energy consumption as well. Moscow can heat Copenhagen, Helsinki, Stockholm, and Oslo, only saving the energy from the traditional power plant stations. So refer to us. So we use this heat. We can get to California. Well, I'm kidding, certainly, but this is how much we can really save. 50 billion kilowatts per hour, and New York 68, Moscow is, and Belgium 90. It means the efficiency of the consumption of energy is close to California. We are efficient here, but not everywhere. 50 megawatts cool supports 400 megawatts in Stockholm, and the same figures in Paris. So, Deputy Mayor Biryukov, let's think about the refrigeration system. Let us try experiment here on the power plant stations. There is reserve, and we are ready. Let's not get too fast, but let's do it. So heat, gas, and water supply can be linked together and saved. So we've analyzed the climate problems for the city, and the energy is ready for the climate change. It has adapted. All the technical sphere is ready for the climate changes. But what is most difficult here? People, because economic losses from mortality and death due to climate changes is 50 times more than the losses of the technical sphere. People, very often they say, well, we want more water, it's too hot, we want drains. So people feel bad. And I, the energy specialist, am trying to think how to improve the electric system providing the climate change. And I think that all the power plants need to have forests and parks around it. Why cannot we do it? We have hairs and focuses on the territory of the oil production plot. It means that it is clean, it is ecologic. Let's try to do this way on the power plants. This will be great and beneficial for the city and for the people, and that will improve the city's development. And this, as I said, is a balanced approach for green and social environment. Zaryadia, this new park, you know how many people are there? Well, when Pyotr Byrykov will improve the river bank, we'll have the new Venice here, so many tourists. Let's go this way. I teach at a university. We have daytime students, and we also have postgraduate programs for adults on ecology. There are a lot of people who are ready to create new eco projects for the city. The city has been pushed due to your energy, time, and will, who have started all this. This is a breakthrough, and let's go on this way. Thank you so much. Unfortunately, we have only 10 minutes left. Since I represent Skolkovo Foundation, and this is the biggest technological and startup incubator, I would like to ask one question to all of you. But before that, I would like our chief expert to answer it. What technologies improving energy efficiency do you think most efficient today and in 5-10 years? Well, we've spoken a lot about energy efficiency. I think we've completed the topic. Let me highlight energy security and cyber security. We need to realize the whole system now is becoming a connection of cyber devices, and we have more and more points for cyber crime. That is why, on the state level, we need to have and to combat efficient measures. 2 years ago, we accepted the law on energy structure security. My dear colleagues, let's like to think about definitions. What is cyber security? Today, we define it as kind of component of energy security, but cyber security is a special zone of responsibility. And in the near future, we need to go together to the standards of cyber security. We need to accept programs. As far as I know, our colleagues in the USA and in European countries have a special doctrine on cyber security. This is where we need to focus. Speaking about energy efficiency, Pyotr Byrykov will support me. Moscow is one of the most energy efficient cities concerning the heat. I think only one power plant station is on coal. The rest of them are supported by gas. So we have more energy consumption. Oh, well, we are the country, due to the climate, we'll have to consume a lot of heat and energy. Still, the amount of the gas consumed for the heat is going down, and this is a significant example so far. Car vehicles, we need to transfer it into more eco gasoline and also efficient. But the question is how to do it and where to start. The producers and the consumers say that create the infrastructure, we'll use it. the gas stations say will create infrastructure. If we have enough consumers. I would like to use this time to refer to the Moscow City Authority. So please help us how to start it, maybe to fund together with the federal resources, the whole network of petrol stations. Clear enough? The energy efficient solution will be the structuring of energy. We are discussing the law on microgeneration, which will give the opportunity to give to the consumers the amounts left of the energy. 15 kilowatts is the amount we have so far, but each housing can afford doing it. One of the solutions is solar panels. Traditionally, this relation in the sphere of energy was bilateral, the producer and the consumer, and all started from the top. Now we have bilateral relations. Consumers are becoming active, and cybersecurity is becoming more important so far.
Вы как считаете, какие?
Thank you. Piotr, what's your opinion on technologies? I realize that so many things were done, but we have to assess what is ahead of us, because I guess you have technologies and you have goals. There is no limit to perfection. How can you upgrade the system further on? Well, of course, so the more you have done, the more you believe you don't know. At the moment, we are working to complete this chain from consumer to the generator, to provide full digitalization and control over system. This is goal number one. The goal number two is to continue our activities on power consumption's reduction, a switch to new types of fuel from 2022 in our urban transportation. We will completely stop using system which use electrical combustion engines. We will fully switch to electric buses. All of them will be domestic, made in Russia. And today, our mayor, Sergei Sobyanin, signed an agreement with gas automobile company, and we will focus on charging stations. We will install chargers, and we agreed to work on creating trucks, and we will provide for electric batteries. And we see in our streets a lot of City Cats and Johnson vehicles, and we will start using electric accumulators for them, and we will have less consumptions of power, energy, and less heat emissions. Another questions I heard, what should do with the remaining heat power plants on coal, which is in Kapotnya and Dzerzhinsky? We have a joint program together with Gazprom Energy Holding, and the city takes part in it. How we can completely stop using coal? In our city, yes, we stopped using all sources of coals. But as for security, they are really relevant questions, and believe me, they are under our constant control. We have a good control system in place. Thank you. Thank you. Sadly, organizers showing me a sheet of paper with the word stop. Well, we need to wrap up, and of course we could further continue our discussion, but the conclusion is that Moscow truly became one of the leaders maybe we have less sun lines, but in other aspects we had made a good progress, and we use other methods and technologies are developing, and I hope they will be taken into the account while our energy development strategy is implemented for the city of Moscow. We will continue exchanging experience with our foreign colleagues, and I hope all cities will eventually become green, energy efficient and safe. Thank you.